Speaking of treasure troves up for the taking, we're going to talk about a recent story here. Our topic today is AT&T's recent report and disclosure of a data breach that happened to them. They determined and announced that, quote, AT&T data-specific fields were contained in a data set released on the dark web approximately 2 weeks ago. According to their disclosure, quote, the data set appears to be from 2019 or earlier, impacting approximately 7.6 million current AT&T account holders and approximately 65.4 million former account holders. So how much do we know about this data breach? If we're looking at just their release, it seems like they're talking about a robust investigation without naming names or identifying ports of entry. But what is your best understanding of how these data sets made it to the dark web?
So based on the available information, right, I don't have anything inside information. It appears that the AT&T data breach is still an investigation by the company. The specific language used in their public statements is quite curious and raised some questions for me.
Okay.
The fact that they mention a data-specific set being released on the dark web is an unusual detail. Typically, when a data breach occurs, the compromised information is more comprehensive data set. That means you take the whole database, not just one pieces of data. So rather than just specific fields from a database. This level of specificity suggests, I think, the possibility of an insider leak rather than an outsider.
Okay.
Okay? The types of sensitive information that were exposed are certainly concerning. Social security numbers, full name, email, and mailing addresses, phone numbers, date of birth, and AT&T account details, right? You can question every one of those data as to why AT&T had them to start with, right? I mean, I want to do a credit check. Okay, you had the credit check, but you could have destroyed all of that. Why did you store
Still there? Yeah.
Right. Well, why do you need my date of birth? You already verified that I'm over 18 to buy a phone or whatever it is when I did.
They want to send you a birthday card.
What is that going to do? Because those are the more and more sensitive information. So that's where I think information can be extremely valuable for cyber criminals and can enable identity theft, phishing scams, and other malicious activities down the road.
Yeah. Now, I mean, how do you feel? This is obviously no one's idea of a good outcome, but how do you feel about how AT&T is handling it thus far?
That's the best, right? It's one of those big data breaches. Unfortunately, they're getting more headlines because AT&T. Right? If it happened to your regional phone company, nobody would talk about it because it's a national brand. It is AT&T, the good old Ma Bell, right? It's been around since Graham Bell, right? So everybody knows about AT&T. So that's probably why it's getting a little bit more attention. But the unusual nature of the breach with only certain data fields being compromised is certainly a head scratcher for me. It's possible that AT&T is still investigating the source and extent of the leak. But their statements are very vague and specific at the same time, just kind of concerning.
Okay, well, again, I'm asking you to rely too much on a crystal ball about information that you don't know. But can you think of any ways? I guess the only answer is don't have the data in the first place. But if it was an insider, like what are some ways that could keep even someone who works for the company out of that particular treasure trove in the way that this was exploited?
Well, the insider threat is a big deal, right?
It is
something that you have to constantly monitor. You have to figure it out who's doing that, were they under blackmail or were they bought out or they usually have some signals, right? The insiders, they got into financial trouble and say, hey, I can give you some data and to a what I call a hacker broker, right? And say, hey, here's a bunch of data and you can do, okay, I'll give you $10,000 for that. So I'll pay off my debt. Whatever. I just don't know that, right? That's an interesting question. There's always a motive and a method, right? So the sensitive personal data exposed in the AT&T breach, including hard to change identifiers like social, enables criminals to conduct large-scale thefts and scams. That's the real danger is going to be not immediately, right? It's a delayed impact of such breaches. Hackers and data buyers often wait until the initial uproar subsides before crafting targeted scams, leaving consumers vulnerable as they have forgotten about the incident. Watch it, because people are not talking about the incident that happened in 2017, I think, that big credit bureau data breach. 150 million consumers in the United States got their data compromised, and we are still paying, right? So they don't go right after, because they know everybody is going to get a 1 year free monitoring after a breach. That is absolutely of zero use to you.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Because hackers have figured out a better motive and say, okay, I'm going to wait out at least a year, and then I'll start my thing, because they have plenty to work with until then. This is all trying to get prepared for 2 years from now. Hey, I'm running out of data, so where do I go? So that's the kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was what I was going to ask next, and you kind of answered it partly for me, which is that, yeah, I feel like every other week now I'm getting an email or a text saying, yeah, we got breached. And it is things like, I'm getting notifications that my CPAT machine, somehow they leaked like personal information from that, which again, like, why do you have that? But and it's always that sort of, if it's change your password, fine, I'll change my password. It's not that hard. But when it's, here's a free year of credit monitoring on us, that something much bigger happened. So I guess from a consumer standpoint, Raj, do you have any advice to sort of keep yourself out of the sort of blast area of these constant sort of breaches? What do you recommend for people who are getting sick of this?
There has to be a consumer revolution, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Because enough is enough. Sometimes we are way too compliant and just giving out information. There are two reasons for that, right? Some of it is because we sign up for everything that is free.
Yes.
How many people, when you check out these days, hey, can you give us your email? We'll give you instantly 5%. But that 5%, let's assume the person is buying $50 worth of some goods and they're getting their email, right? It's 5% of $50 is $2.50. Let's assume, as an example, right? They're going to blow $5 walking out of the building to buy a cappuccino somewhere, right? So they've already lost that savings, but they've already given out one free thing that the vendor wanted. And then they want to start sending you more information, So they'll start saying, hey, and then you start trusting them. And then you start giving out more information. Hey, I know this place. Okay, let me buy something online. And you put in your credit card information. And you put in your date of birth for verification or whatever it is. And whatever they do, right? That is how it is. The cycle starts, going, and it never stops. So I suggest that, be wary of every data sharing and question everything. Question.
Yeah, which, is it. I think they try to sort of wear you down with all of the sort of terms of service that are 80 pages long. And every time you log onto the site, they want you to accept cookies again and again. And I mean, I think it is kind of, they're also waiting you out in terms of hoping that you'll get.
It is in their best interest, right? So if you think about it, right, the regulations are all mess, right? They're trying to band-aid the same process. So anyway, we can talk all that.